Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Tonight we're venturing into the wilderness, a place of serene beauty, but also a place where the unexpected can happen. We'll be sharing 3 chilling tales of encounters in the wild, stories whispered around campfires and passed down through generations. Our first story takes us to the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest, a region known for its towering redwoods and ancient moss-draped trees. It's here that Sarah, an experienced hiker, embarked on what she thought would be a routine solo hike. The trail, known as Eagle's Crest, was familiar to Sarah, a path she'd traversed countless times before. The sun was beginning its descent, casting long shadows through the trees, as Sarah made her way deeper into the woods. It was then that she noticed something peculiar, strange symbols carved into the bark of the trees, seemingly ancient markings that sent a shiver down her spine. The symbols were unlike anything she'd encountered before, a series of intricate spirals and geometric shapes that seemed to pulsate with an unnerving energy. As she continued along the trail, a sense of unease settled over her. The forest, once so familiar and comforting, now felt alien and vaguely threatening. Then, through a break in the trees, she saw it, a figure standing motionless in the distance, shrouded in shadow. It was tall and slender, its outlines indistinct against the fading light. Fear, primal and instinctive, surged through Sarah's veins. She froze, her breath catching in her throat. The figure remained still, as if carved from the very essence of the forest itself. Sarah's mind raced, trying to rationalize what she was seeing. Was it a fellow hiker, another soul drawn to the solitude of the woods, or was it something more, something that defied explanation? Gathering her courage, Sarah called out, her voice trembling slightly, "Hello, is anyone there?" Silence. Only the rustling of leaves and the distant call of a bird broke the stillness. The figure remained unmoved, its presence a palpable weight in the air. Slowly, cautiously, Sarah began to approach, her eyes fixed on the shadowy form. As she drew closer, the feeling of unease intensified, a prickling sensation at the back of her neck. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the figure vanished. With a shudder, Sarah turned and hurried back the way she'd come, her earlier sense of peace replaced by a profound disquiet. Our next story takes us to the rugged peaks of the Rocky Mountains, where a group of friends embarked on a weekend camping trip, eager to escape the confines of city life and reconnect with nature. The group, made up of 4 close friends, Mark, Emily, John, and Jessica, were experienced campers, well-versed in the ways of the wilderness. They set up camp near a pristine alpine lake, its surface a mirror reflecting the towering peaks that surrounded them. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the mountainside, they gathered around a crackling campfire, sharing stories and laughter. As the stars began to paint the night sky, Mark, an amateur astronomer, pointed out constellations, sharing his knowledge of the cosmos. It was then that Emily noticed something strange, a faint ethereal glow emanating from the tree line across the lake. "Hey, what's that?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. The others followed her gaze, their eyes drawn to the unusual light. It flickered and danced amongst the trees like fireflies caught in a gentle breeze. "Weird," John muttered, squinting his eyes. "Looks like some kind of light show." Curiosity piqued, Mark grabbed his binoculars from his backpack, adjusting the focus. That's not any light show I've ever seen," he said, his voice laced with uncertainty. The light, now clearly visible through the binoculars, wasn't emanating from any man-made source. It appeared to be a cluster of glowing orbs, pulsating with an otherworldly luminescence. An uneasy silence descended upon the group. The orbs, seemingly aware of their observers, began to move, drifting slowly towards them across the lake. Fear, cold and insidious, wormed its way into their hearts. "Maybe we should pack up," Jessica whispered, her voice trembling, "just in case." Mark, though shaken, tried to maintain a sense of calm. "Let's not panic," he said, his voice strained. "They're probably just some weird atmospheric phenomenon. We're safe here by the fire." But even as he spoke, a part of him couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The orbs continued their approach, their glow intensifying with each passing moment. They moved with an unnerving fluidity, like living creatures, their movements seemingly guided by an unseen intelligence. As the orbs drew closer, the group could feel an oppressive presence, a weight pressing down on them, making it difficult to breathe. Then, without warning, the orbs shot up into the night sky, their light fading as quickly as it had appeared. The group sat in stunned silence, their hearts pounding in their chests. They packed up their gear in frantic silence, their movements fueled by adrenaline and a primal urge to escape. As they hiked back to their car in the pre-dawn light, casting nervous glances over their shoulders, they couldn't shake the feeling that they had been spared, that whatever those orbs were, they had been allowed to leave. The wilderness, they realized, held secrets best left undisturbed. The once peaceful night now felt ominous, the silence filled with unseen menace. Our final story takes us to the desolate beauty of the Appalachian Mountains, a region steeped in folklore and shrouded in an almost tangible sense of history. It's here that a lone hiker, seeking solace in the solitude of the wilderness, stumbled upon a discovery that would forever alter his perception of reality. The hiker, a man named Thomas, was drawn to the wilderness, seeking refuge from the noise and chaos of city life. He found peace in the rhythm of his footsteps, in the whisper of the wind through the trees, in the solitude that only nature could provide. He'd been hiking for days, his only companions the creatures of the forest and the ghosts of long-forgotten stories that seemed to linger amongst the ancient trees. One evening, as the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the mountainside, Thomas stumbled upon a clearing. In the center stood a dilapidated cabin, its wooden walls weathered and worn, its windows like vacant eyes staring out at him. Curiosity piqued, Thomas cautiously approached. The cabin seemed abandoned, reclaimed by the wilderness that surrounded it. Vines snaked up its walls, their tendrils reaching towards the roof like grasping hands. The porch sagged precariously, threatening to collapse under the weight of years and neglect. As he drew closer, Thomas noticed something strange, a symbol carved into the wood above the door frame. It was a simple symbol, a circle with a dot in the center, yet it seemed to pulsate with an unseen energy. He'd seen the symbol before, in books on ancient folklore and mythology. It was an ancient symbol, one that predated recorded history, its meaning lost to the mists of time. Hesitantly, Thomas reached out and pushed open the door. It creaked open, revealing a dark and dusty interior. The air inside was stale and heavy, thick with the scent of decay and the weight of forgotten memories. As his eyes adjusted to the dim light, Thomas began to make out the shapes of furniture, shrouded in cobwebs and dust. There was a table in the center of the room, its surface littered with rusted tools and yellowed parchment. A rocking chair sat by a cold fireplace, its back to him, as if waiting for its occupant to return. And in the far corner, bathed in a shaft of light from a broken window, stood an altar. It was fashioned from rough-hewn stone, its surface stained with what appeared to be dried blood. A chill ran down Thomas's spine. This was no ordinary cabin. This was a place of secrets, a place where the veil between our world and the unknown felt thin and fragile. Drawn by an unseen force, Thomas approached the altar. Resting on its surface was a leather-bound journal, its pages filled with faded ink. He picked it up, his fingers trembling slightly. The journal was cold to the touch, as if imbued with the chill of the grave. As he began to read, the words seemed to leap off the page, whispering to him of forgotten rituals, of ancient beings, of a darkness that lurked beneath the surface of the world. The journal belonged to a man named Elijah, who claimed to have discovered a hidden gateway within these mountains, a gateway to a realm beyond human comprehension. Elijah wrote of strange creatures, of rituals performed under the light of the moon, of a power that both terrified and seduced him. Thomas read on, his blood running cold. Elijah's words painted a picture of a descent into madness, a slow and inexorable slide into the abyss. He wrote of sacrifices made, of blood spilled, of a pact made with an entity of unimaginable power. The final entry in the journal was scrawled in a frantic hand, the ink blurred as if written in haste. "It is here," Elijah wrote. "I can feel its presence. It is coming for me. I have seen too much. I have gone too far. Forgive me." Thomas closed the journal, his heart pounding in his chest. He had stumbled upon something ancient and evil, a darkness that had slumbered for centuries within these mountains. As he turned to leave, he noticed something he hadn't seen before. Scratched into the stone floor just in front of the altar was the same symbol he had seen above the door frame, the circle with a dot in the center. So there you have it, 3 chilling tales from the wild. The wilderness is a place of wonder, but it's also a place of mystery, a place where the unknown can reveal itself in the most unsettling ways. Have you had any strange encounters in the wild? Share your stories in the comments below, and as always, thanks for watching.